Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues and guests of the roundtable, also speakers and participants. I'm really glad to welcome you here at our roundtable, which would be dedicated to an essential topic, the housing savings for more affordable mortgage. We know that State Duma on the 17th of October uh, was the new project on stimulation and housing savings for citizens, mostly about the question of saving mortgage and the experience of implementation such practices is already popular in other regions. I also want to mention that Kazakhstan succeed in this topic. I could say that these questions are quite general, both the partnership and counterpart funding and housing savings. In order to produce the right and the cheap source of lending, we need to discuss both these questions and find the solutions. We have an hour and a half. That's why I think it's better to meet the deadline of 5, 7, maximum 8 minutes. And right from the beginning of our roundtable, I want to give the floor to the host of mm, the host of this event, Raisa Berdina. Can you please present the best practices of our region here? Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Thank you for participation of our roundtable. In the Republic of Bashkortostan, for almost a dozen of years, there is a housing savings program. It's a mortgage program which helps people to save up money for the future lending. We have already tested such or similar programs in Rostam region and other subjects. We also have interesting experience of implementation of housing savings throughout the cooperatives in Tatarstan and also in Bashkortostan. Since the start of implementation of this program, there were more than 9,000 people participating in it. At least more than half of them, with the help of this program, made their housing better. So within the market of housing, we can see 8.6 billion rubles involved into the project. Here we have three banks supporting S&P Bank, Uralsib, and Central Bank. So the potential of this industry is quite high, especially because we have the increase in the rate and also in the lending too. Apart from the optimal rate for mortgage, we also solve up other questions. For example, the availability of reimbursement and also stimulations. Apart from that, providing information for the citizens, finding the new ways of support in the sphere of mortgage. Also, the increase of the portfolio of main deferred payments, the questions of savings, and many other. As we have only the pilot project, we face some complications because our program of housing savings also had some challenges and mistakes. As Vladimir Borisovich told us, on the 17th of August, we launched the project on housing savings for citizens. We hope that the experience of our republic would be helpful under the estimation of this project and also after its implementation. So we consider and claim to discuss all these burning points and questions. Also, we'll touch upon the perspectives of this sphere. So I wish everyone to have fruitful work today. Thank you, Nela Raisovna. And now I'd like the next speaker. Of course, we understand that right now we have the time in Russia to adopt the legislation on housing savings because it's the cheapest way to get money for mortgage. It especially needed within the framework of increasing rate on mortgage. So without the financing, we should see and we should find the new solutions for our constructors. In this case, I'd like to give the floor to, it would be online, Oleg Ivanov. It's the person who always follows the trends and legislation in the financing industry. So, Oleg Mikhailovich, I'd like you to present your point of view on the new mechanisms of construction financing within the framework of increased rates of preferential lending. He's a co-chairperson of the Committee for Investment Banking Products of the Association of Banks of Russia. Good afternoon, Vladimir Borisovich, Nela Raisovna. I'm glad to welcome everyone, all the participants of the round table. So, of course, talking about housing savings and the potential of its development within the Bashkortostan, we could say that our associations of Russian banks have already discussed this topic for 20 years already. And I believe that only right now we move from theory to practice. That's why we have a draft law. At least 20 years have passed since we started this discussion. And I think the solution is interesting and even intriguing, especially within Bashkir lands, because it gave fruits here, showing thousands of participants of this program. Considering this business week, which has the topic of the day after tomorrow, I'd like you to pay attention to the challenges which the mortgage market face right now. Please open my presentation and the second slide. I'd like you to pay attention to the challenges and tasks for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, which we are facing right now within the mortgage industry. And also those challenges which would be faced by constructors in capitals and also in regions. Of course, I believe that the crucial topic is the switch from the lending model to the saving lending model. As Raisa mentioned before, when we had the key rate too high for Russia and when we don't know whether there would be some decrease or not, it becomes unavailable for people. So within the framework of the lending mortgage, such programs which has just state subsidies become the top one priority. For example, when we're talking about the family mortgage with stimulations, at least 17% goes for this type of mortgage. When we have such an overload for our budget, we believe that that we have restricted opportunities for this type of family mortgage. So we see the essential need for the future several years is to use the loan saving model, especially for those borrowers who need to save up money for 3 or maybe 5 years in the bank. So which challenges concerning the construction companies and also concerning the budget can be caused due to such circumstances. Here on this slide, we can see red lines, red bars. So these are the current mortgages which started to develop only 4 years ago. But you can see that within the time, you can see that the load increased too. From several billion rubles, it became more than 400 billion rubles, which would be provided for the payment of the mortgages on the basis of preferential lending. It's the obligation of people to the bank. You can see that even we have a lower rate if you want to pay before the terms. Even though we have quite high rates for mortgage, you can see that this overload would be borne by them for dozens of years. That's the way how we can consider it, that the limits show that it's not an infinite model. We don't have such opportunities to cover it up all the time. So what are the results and challenges that constructors face? First of all, the model of financing in accordance to the law number 214 about the financing of construction. The transformation of the funds, they go through 3 steps. First of all, at the stage of building and construction, then these funds go to the bank accounts, as banks pay only 0% stake. They could finance the constructor too under the stimulations that they have without any risks. Here I'd like you to pay attention to 4 numbers. These are the challenges for the upcoming 5 years in front that our industry faces around Russia. So the banks took the responsibility to finance those lines for 15 billion rubles. And they are already open to the Russian construction sphere. They have already prepaid 6 trillion of rubles. And still we have the remains which are close up to this number. Where did they get this money? They are from the mortgage market. So what would happen with the influx of money since the 1st of July the next year, when we'll see the first results of the mortgage market and the first results of preferential lending? Here we need to think about the new mechanisms of financing our constructors during the construction period. Here we need to have the saving component in the industry, but they would occur in 2 or 3 years. So within the framework of a stimulation period, we need to save up this money in order to overcome this lending so-called winter. Here on this slide, you can see 3 variants, like funding, for example, the digital shares, and also refinancing of the Russian bank. I believe that if we'll use them in complex, it would allow us to find the new resources for financing of construction. The next slide. I'd like to mention the new standard documentation for this type of mortgage, which was shared by the Association of Russian Banks after 2 years of working. It's the 2nd edition of the standard agreement. Here you can see that with the use of such type of lending, so synthetic lending, the person can get the lending from groups of banks, and also will have the access to substantial financing resources. The preferential lending are also considered to have the lower rate. So we can also prepare on this type of lending within the same activity. The association has issued a standard document in 200 pages, and this documentation is available on QR code inside the brochure. Then let's go to the main point. I believe that the biggest challenge which is faced within the industry is in front of the central bank that we have, because the constructors have an opportunity to get the preferential lending. So the change, the movement to another financial rate, it would cause the increase in the price of the projects. I believe not all of the projects would overcome this obstacle. That's why it becomes essential to implement the mechanisms of refinancing, because under this take, the central bank can help the funding banks, not just at the key rate, like 15%, the non-stimulation, non-preferential lending, which are needed for those different mechanisms. Right now, we have 3 types of such variants in order to work with non-manufacturing spheres. So you can see on the slide that they have the rate starting from 6 to 13%, are even lower than the key rate that we have. The next slide, please. So it seems like if we want to support the construction when we have the absence of several mechanisms, how we need to work within only one, it's lending for construction industry. We should talk about the terms which can meet up the implementation of project. The rate should not be bigger than 5%, and it should be available for most of the projects. And also, I think that the amount, the volume should be reduced, just because we have only 5 million of it. So the banks were ready to pay 13 trillion rubles, but only half of it should have been covered by the special mechanisms of lending for construction. And to sum up, I think that I cannot meet the deadline. What are the results? So those system of housing savings, which is already put into operation, has already showed its results, and what was fixed in the new draft project of the law, which should be adopted soon. So it has the potential for 3-5 years, can become the role model of Russian mortgage market. So we change it from lending to the house saving with 13% rate at the start. During this period when we have the deficiency in funds and we have quite high rate, there would be no need for Russian construction industry to overcome this period without the budget financing and also change of the financing or throughout the Russian bank. No digital financial actives or even preferential lending won't work and won't happen on the construction market. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oleg Mikhailovich, for your anxious presentation, but it was really good. So those people who work in business and in some regulation authorities should think about your projects and the implementation of those projects. So talking about the mechanism of housing savings, it is really important to think about mega regulations. So I would like you to give the floor to one of the most colorful speakers of the international business. So to Marat Kashapov, manager of the branch National Bank of the Republic of Bashkortostan. So, Marat Danilovich, the floor is yours. Thanks for giving the floor to me. So I guess that the result of this work is done. So we managed to have this result because of lots of specialists that worked on this, and we also listened to different scientists and specialists from banks and construction companies that were included in the pilot project, and also some of the workers from the central bank. And now it is trying to we try to get this project into the government, and so now we see this an example of this example is implemented here on the Republic, and we get good results. So I would like to join Oleg Mikhailovich on the housing savings, on the usefulness of them. So when the situation so when key interest rates are increasing, and in such circumstances of mortgages not being available, we could start financing construction companies. So I guess that I would like to join what Oleg Mikhailovich said earlier, but I suppose that some of his offers on some money politics can be quite controversial, and maybe we will need further discussion, because it is really important that the cost on the money market should be quite equal. But if we're talking about simulation or social politics, it should be implemented in fiscal regulation, and we should keep the balance of implementing those instruments, and it should be according to the law of our country. But talking about housing savings and typical mortgage, I would like to because of that, the housing is more available for working class, and right now it's not really available. So the amount of the savings should be more. So secondly, the lendee has more savings now, and it is really important that when we save money, it leads to a more consequent model, and it disciplines the lendee of the rhythmic mechanism. So, and it is really important that through this instrument we can create long-lasting passive shares, and it's really important to implement them into our economic system, and as a part of our latest decisions on developing of long-lasting savings, and also some stimulations, government stimulations, so that people could get more mortgages, and that will help the economics of our country. And I guess in these circumstances, we should develop housing savings, because this type of savings are more important for investors, because they are connected to personal things, and it all depends on some investment preferences. And talking about the international experience, not only CIS countries, so we also considered Kazakhstan and CIS countries, and we observed the fact that lots of countries used these combined complex products and such plans, and it was effective. It is also really crucial that this load that is increasing according to the typical model, this policy leads to some risks, and the topic of unstable economics should be more talked about through housing savings. Another crucial moment is that when the key interest rate is increasing or decreasing, so through the mortgage mechanism, we can see the effects on the construction sphere. So when a person buys a real estate and pays the down payment, those effects are not that critical. And also, we understand that this measure is more effective. So when we, so in the Republic of Bashkortostan, the subsidiary, the general sum of money that is a part of financing is 15 times more than some other measures. It is better than just typical subsidiaries. And talking about some offers, I guess that this law is quite difficult for everyone. This is the new version of that law, and I guess that we should finally offer it to the State Duma, and understanding that this so that people who develop this law, so banks do not like this. They cannot adopt to the requirements of the Republic of Bashkortostan or some other regions, and scaling. But yeah, there are some other things that are written in the law, and we understand that this model is just the first thing in the development process. We should somehow support them through some other financing measures, support measures. So as a part of the national project, we should support housing savings, and some Russian Federation subjects, as the Republic of Bashkortostan. Not only in the Republic of Bashkortostan, we should also implement it on the federal level. And considering, so we've talked about that in the first section today. So I guess that we should consider such measures through subsidiaries. And I guess that we can transform the amount of subsidiaries, and we can use them and we can use them in the sphere of housing. And maybe my colleagues will talk about that a little bit later. So I end up with my presentation. Thanks, colleague. So your approach was quite macroeconomic, was quite about macroeconomics. So now we should talk about. So I give the floor to Mr. Dikatov, who is a manager of the branch National Bank of the, who is a director of Fin Center of the Republic of Bashkortostan, autonomous non-profit organization. So his topic is housing savings for more affordable.
Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Thank you very much. Actually, as Murat Danilovich presented, and as it was also mentioned before, for quite long we have developed the program of housing savings, and in 2014 we've launched it together with Sberbank. After that, also other banks joined us. If you can open the presentation, we'll follow it. I won't repeat the words, but some of the aspects which were mentioned by the other speakers, I'd like to stop on them and talk a bit in detail. First of all, its multiple effect, especially now. Please open the presentation. And even now, we can say that it's not 15 rubles, but for one budget rubles and whole 20 rubles. From those amount, only a bit more than 4 million were paid to those 5,300 citizens. But the reason is that those lending was even bigger. That's the way how we formed the additional market of credit owners, and also it's the way how we got the funds for the Republic too. I'd like you to pay the attention to rates within the mortgage. It's free up to 5%. There are some of the programs which can reduce it, and it's without the subsidies from the budget, because it can be provided only while having savings. They don't cover up the income of the bank. They just speed up the savings for the first payment, what was mentioned before. So those credit owners, credit users who need to have 13% to enter it for making it stable. So getting back to our business about this topic, I have another vision. Who needs to know, who needs to have knowledge in this project? And I have changed my opinion on it. We have heard many times that it takes too long and no one puts it into practice further than just as regional practice. And since 2014, they even tried to fix it legally, yes, as a law. If we go back to the start when we realized that there is no free of charge housing right now, and we only formed the mortgage market. So there was a bulk of work of Russian continental legislation in order to fix some of the terms involvement into mortgage. It wasn't that fast. It took quite long. And those initiatives which occur at the same time, they are still considered to be just analogs or just alternatives. Now we'll not talk about alternatives, but about the additional topics which became classic too. It's not the rebuilding of the loan modeling, but just using the collaboration between lending and housing savings. Why do we use it? First of all, for example, our neighboring country, Kazakhstan, uses this program since 2009, together with the National Bank, which implements the program within the framework, the state program of the Republic. which is called the available housing. Here we have only the pilot program and pilot regions. They are also the savings like Bashkortostan, Krasnodar region. These variants are mostly like housing cooperatives. And once again, we can see Bashkortostan among the main regions there. So the experience of such practices should be the foundation of the changes in legislation, what we see now in State Duma. Oleg Mikhailovich also mentioned these years, like easy days, easy money, as we can name it. Of course, we got hooked up for the pill, and then it appeared to be a needle for the cheap mortgage. I wouldn't present results once again how to give up this drug and how to overcome the obstacles that occurred due to that, especially when we had the additional reduction of rate due to the increase in the prices of housing. Of course, banks and construction industries will face challenges if such methods would disappear. But federal authorities who provide subsidies for these programs, and also the citizens need new tools. And here we need to think over about our future. No doubt, it was all mentioned before by the other speakers. The launching of the law on housing savings, of course, also this mechanism, as we mentioned with my colleagues before the session, it's possible to do it without the percentage within the framework of experiment, make affordable for banks, and also addressing the Ministry of Finances, we can find the support in the sphere of housing savings for the citizens. As we summed up all together here, I believe that we have future for this program. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Evgeny. We know, and we also discussed that Bashkortostan is not the only one region which has the practical experience in implementation of such mechanisms. For example, in Kuban, they started this program in 2011. Right now, I'd like to give the floor to head of the Department for Ensuring Housing Rights of Certain Groups of Citizens on the Ministry of Fuel and Energy and Housing and Utilities of the Krasnodar region, Andrei Valentinovich Aksionov. Are you here? He would be present online. Yes, now we can hear you. Welcome.
So, welcome. And I thank the organizers. I thank you for the opportunity to be here and to participate in this roundtable and hear about and listen to the tendencies that are now in the sphere. I would like to be short. The events, the projects that are implemented for people who get so those projects so the support is 30% of the savings. The down payment is 10,000 rubles. The plan was established in 2011, and it was established in accordance with the economic situation back in 2011. The participants in the first few years was not a lot. And a lot of the participants of this program somehow got better housing. So Sberbank of the Russian Federation was the bank that helped us with this project. So the rate was 1 or 2% per annum, and a participant could get 6%, 7% rate mortgage. But then the economic situation has changed, and the interest rate changed, and so we had to change the program, and we had to implement it in the market, so that they could get mortgages and preferential lending. So it was also the participants of this program could stop being in this program earlier. So now partner banks are Bank Center Invest, Rossельхоз, and Kuban Credit banks. In Krasnodar Krai right now, the activity of so the prospects of, according to the specialists, we have to consider housing savings. So it will support the housing savings, and it will help us in the future. It will help us to develop in the future. So my presentation is over. I can answer questions now. So thanks, Oleg Valentinovich. But I guess that if we have time, we will ask you questions. So I've heard experience in regions, and now I understand that it is really important to use these practices on the federal level. So in the current situation, when the interest rate has increased, so now I would like to give the floor to Timur Hamidulin, member of the Committee for Investment Banking Products. So I give the floor to you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm glad to be here today with you. And I'm really happy that the forum is now, there are lots of other participants in this forum. So I also really liked the roundtable on counterpart funding. So I guess that citizens of the Russian Federation, so the central bank is now restricting a lot. Now, since October 1, there are some restrictions. So the down payment now is more than 30%. So a year ago, the down payment was 15%, then it was 20%, and 3 or 4 years ago, the down payment was from 5 to 10%. Marat Kashapov has already mentioned that. So if we're talking from the point of view of the bank, if a person is trying to save money and put it into the bank deposit, and I guess that we should now understand how it should look like, so how the product should look like. So the most difficult thing is that we should somehow establish interest rates on such mortgages. And on the slide, we can see that key interest rate is increasing, and it is not in the typical contract of the central bank. So the key rate during 10 hours has changed a lot. You can see it on the slide. If we look to Western countries, for example, the German experience, so their mortgages, so
At the same time, the system of housing saving is not connected to the market stake. If we consider the launching of such system only on the market, we need to take into account other limitations. First of all, in the situation of increasing key interest rates, it would be more interesting to get the market rate. Due to the increase, our owners, our deposit owners are interested to enter for more than not only 1 year, but more, just because they're not ready for it, as they lose a lot according to the interest. That's why I believe it would better to choose the flexible rate and change this interest with some periods, taking into account the market stakes too, in order to get the interest of the owner. And it is impossible to choose the key interest rate for 2, 3, or 5 years at the stage of agreement conclusion. So it is expected that the following procedure would help us. A year ago, according to the law connected with the lending, right now they need to estimate the whole lending that stake that and the whole lending amount that we need to pay. I need to remind you that it is impossible to give the lending which is higher than the average market lending which we have. For example, right now it won't be available to find the right guarantee conditions within the agreement bent to the market rate. And it seems like in Russia, if we launch this system, it would be impossible to use the volatile interest. We cannot escape it. It's just paying some bonuses with the help of state savings. Maybe it will somehow compensate some percentage for the banks. That's the way how lending organization would find the cheapest way of funding. How to make it correct in the agreement, most of the lawyers of banks are thinking over this right now. No doubt this model would be interesting for banks, and it would be highly prospective as a result of volatile systems. Now we see that in the Republic of Bashkortostan, we have enough experience to become the leaders in the new system of housing savings. Thank you very much. Thank you, Timur Ramilovich. Thank you for your suggestion. And further on, I'd like to give the floor to the representative of the banking sector, the acting director and the head of the Center for Partnership, Financing and Special Projects of Sberbank, Gurban Sadeh Behnam. Thank you very much for the invitation and the honor to be the part of this conversation. I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate that I'm not such a great specialist right now, as I got interested in it only a half year ago on seeing the development of the partnership in Russia, especially the banks. We saw a lot of similar movements when the product is installed into the line of counterpart funding. I could say it's a long-term product, and its nature, with all its features and amendments, can be used for entering the market with new initiatives on improvement of the level of life of our citizens, our customers, and of course to use this product as the way to structurize the new, to form up new products too, as a basis. I believe so. It would be very interesting also to enter the market with it. First of all, yes, we mostly think about shares, which should be structurized, which would build up the housing funds. But God save us that Sberbank knows how to digitalize this housing savings right now. Studying this project we are discussing right now, we paid attention that Sber left this project in 2021 and discussing it with colleagues. We wanted to find the reason, and two main reasons that made us think over this decision. Yeah, the first one, just from the position of from the point of our colleagues, it's not that profitable, and the second is it wasn't that attractive. It wasn't that in demand on the market. That's why our colleagues, for example, from Domclick, they prepared an alternative product. It's a Sber accounting machine. They have already accepted it in several regions, and they also want to launch it the next year. And I think so. If they have any interest, we can have a discussion with our colleagues and maybe organize some of the ties. We can also assist in this. So also working together with our colleagues, half an hour ago, we received the news that Domclick also launched the new formal mortgage, and they have two pilot regions. One of those is Bashkortostan. So the process is moving forward, and it's quite interesting for the market. So in the background of this product that we discuss as one of the alternative ways to form the investment funds on the basis of those deposits that we have. Right now, we study and think over such a pilot as a life warranty. Within the framework of this product, we have interesting initiatives which are quite profitable. So the money that the person accumulates on its account during some term, they have not only 0% rate, they could even earn money. Those money would be formed in the way of accumulation, or they can invest it and make a profit out of it if the bank allows it on the basis of the contract to manage this money. So if we consider these two products, like life warranty and also housing savings, we're ready to present them the next year to work them out, and all together with colleagues from Domclick with such products as Sber Cash Machine. I believe that this product would be implemented the next year. To talk short on our behalf, so if you'll have any questions or we can consult you somehow, we are ready. So our company is ready to integrate into it, provide the expertises, and assist you. Thank you very much for your speech. And traditionally, when we're talking about the housing savings, we're talking not only about the banking mechanisms, but also corporations. Corporations. They have best practices of using halal instruments, which we discussed on the round table a bit earlier. Further on this topic, I'd like to listen to Rustam Shafigolin, Director of Housing Traditions, Housing Saving Cooperative. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. On behalf of myself and my company, I'd like to thank you for participation in this event, and also the organizing committee and Evgeny Dekadov, who 5 years ago, invited us for Bashkir market with our saving system. We also have one old cooperative which was launched in 2014, and the second one which we have organized in 2018 after the changing of documentation within the framework of Sharia. Right now, we also conduct our activity on the Republic of Bashkortostan, and we were very glad to enter this market, being prepared, being ready for it, together with Evgeny Manaev, who was the head of the cooperative for housing savings. When we entered this market, we were waiting. We were expecting what we need to teach our clients and customers our financial systems. But we were so glad when we received a great feedback from the customers in 2 months. Maybe you know Vensky Les, or it is also called Wien Forest. It was also the housing saving project. Throughout our activity, we have received more than 6,500 customers, and among these stories, among these projects, we had more than 2.5 billion rubles of investments in halal. I can tell you it's a volatile market. When we entered it in 2014, we beat the record just because we had 4.5 billion rubles raised. But after all these subsidiaries, all that mortgages and lending, right now we have more than 812 million rubles as the share investments. So the initial payment should consist of 30% of the full amount that we had. And sometimes we have some interesting moments when we receive money from the heads of maybe just husbands in order to save them, just because when they save up money at home, they spend it just ruble for ruble. And when we met Evgeny Dekadov several years ago, he presented us the system of house saving. I could say it's quite a comfortable system to save up money, especially for the initial deposit, for the mortgage, and also if you want to enter the housing saving program. We'll also have a positive practice when the customers saved up the money essential for initial deposit. They came, and this money transferred from his organization to our organization as the initial deposit. And here we have conducted a lot of work in Bashkortostan because we even had no branch here. But still we had a lot of deals because here we had quite educated customers. Maybe that's the reason why we had such results, and that's why I'm so thankful to Evgeny and Rafael that they have prepared a giant market for us. I hope that we will stay in contact and will be partners further. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rustam. And now I'd like, as most of the speakers had their speeches, to conclude everything, we'll have the Bank of Russia. I'd like to give the floor to Sergei Karamovin, Deputy Head of Ural Main Office of the Bank of Russia.
So thanks, dear colleagues. I'm glad to participate in this roundtable. So I was born in Ufa, and I've been working in the National Bank of the Republic of Bashkortostan for a long time. And I saw this. I really know this topic of the housing savings really good. I started working on it in 2008, and I remember when I and Mr. Dekatov launched a project on housing savings that we discussed today. So, um, actually, I agree with everything that we discussed today. So, but three main things that I agree with. Firstly, I agree with Daniel Kashapov that nowadays the role of savings in the sphere of construction is really important, especially from the microeconomics approach of it. Also, um, also the costs of in the construction sphere. So Oleg Mikhailovich said earlier that we should transfer from just mortgage model to savings model, and to somehow accelerate the savings aspect of it. We should. Um, my colleagues said earlier that this transfer can be quite painful for us, and we should. There are some instruments that we can use, and some of these offers need discussions, but I guess that um, we can also add an instrument, a tool, an obligation tool that is quite successful. So the implementation of these tools is quite successful. Secondly, obviously, I guess that the experience of the Republic of Bashkortostan and the result of the housing savings project should be accelerated. And I guess that in 10 years, we can have more examples of the project implementation. I guess that the optimistic expectations did not work, but I guess that we should. Everyone said earlier that we should make to create a law on housing savings, and we should somehow write it down in the regulation. And regions, and secondly, we can underline that not many banks are partners of this project, and we have many questions that we heard today, but I guess that we should pay attention to the international experience, especially the experience of our of CIS countries, for example, Belarus and Kazakhstan, and China as well. And I would like to. I'm happy that this offer has been said today, has been pronounced out loud. The resolution. And thirdly, I agree with the topic that I discussed in the first part of this session. Here, I guess that the potential is not implemented in a full way, and some people and some experts do not really like this housing saving cooperative. And but we've seen a really a successful experience of this mechanism implementation. There are some difficulties, including an old regulations, and we should work on that. We should make some amendments to it. So. As an authority that that supervises this project, we should also consider some changes, and on the 14th of December we will have negotiations, a meeting, and we will discuss this topic. And I also invite those who are interested in participating in this meeting. Maybe you will offer some solutions. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. So we discussed lots of things today, and I guess that we made everything in time. And if you have any more questions or offers, so we have time. We don't really have a lot of time, but you can do that right now. Are there any volunteers? So I guess that we have the resolution project of this roundtable, and according to what we've have heard today, I guess that we will somehow add it up, and there are some offers and that we should work on, and it is really important. And then the text of the resolution will be sent to everybody. So I would like to thank organizers, speakers, and participants, and I would like to thank everyone. Thanks.